Hello and welcome to the Ae86 Preservation Society. My name is Mo, and I'm going to be showing you guys some tips and tricks on installing a seat cover. So the first thing that I like to do before I install any seat cover is make sure that it is completely turned inside out. And this helps by keeping extra material from being in the way when you're installing hog rings from the bottom of the seat cover to the foam itself. So, like most parts of a seat cover installation, we're going to start from the center and work our way out. So right here I am making sure that my listing wire is in the center and not poking out too long on either side. So you'll see here that I've got an extra 1.5 inches of wire sticking out, and we definitely don't want that. We want it to be nice and centered in the listing. So you'll have to forgive me, I sent out my only pair of hog ring pliers to a customer, and so we're just going to have to use our imagination here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the first hog ring in the very middle of this seat. And if we zoom in here, we can see where the original hog ring actually went through. So we're going to use those as references and try and get them roughly in the same place. And that'll help ensure that we get the seat cover installed correctly and centered. The center portion of this seat cover is only held on by 3 hog rings. And I like to start in the very center and then put one on the right side, which is the side closest to me, and then one on the left side, which is furthest from me. And again, I want to try and use the original hog ring locations. Alright, so after installing the 3 hog rings in the center of the seat cover, we're going to be making our way towards the back of the seat. And it's going to be held in place almost identically to the centerpiece. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to make sure that our listing wire is centered in the listing or that flap of material. And we're going to install 3 hog rings, one in the center, one on the left, and one to the right. And what's unique about this particular listing piece is that it actually goes through the foam and connects to the metal frame beneath it. And you'll see that as I go and do a close-up on that. So again, we're going to install only 3 hog rings here, one in the center, one on the left, and one on the right. And we want to make sure that the listing and the listing wire are centered in that channel. And after we get those locked into place, we can again unravel the seat cover and move on to the sides. Now the sides are held in place by 4 hog rings on each side. You have 2 that are behind that center channel where we started off, and 2 in front of. Now the foam looks like there are actually 5 spots for hog rings, but we're only going to use 4 of them because the 5 aren't necessary. Toyota felt like the 5 spots weren't necessary either, so they only used the 2 in the rear and 2 up front. So we will work from the back of the seat, and we will install 2 hog rings in the back, 2 up front. And once we get those installed, we can rotate the seat again and do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, we're going to tuck in that listing channel, and we are going to use 2 hog rings starting from the back, 1, 2, and then we'll go through over the center, and we will do another 2 till we get to that last hog ring location. And again, we can just fold it over, and then we work our way to the front of the seat. So this next part of installing the seat cover might be a little bit intimidating, but it really shouldn't be. It's just a matter of working the material that we have up on top down and around. Now, the most important thing that we're looking for when we are doing this last portion of installing the seat cover on top is we want to focus on where our seam goes. So you can see along the edge of the foam, you can see where the old where the old seam was laying on the original seat cover. Now we want our seam to go in that exact spot. So we want the bulk of that seam to be laying flat with the side of the foam, or the vertical portion of the seat cushion. And if by chance the seam finds itself on top of the foam, you sometimes get this unsightly, wavy appearance on the seam, and we definitely want to avoid that. So with this next portion, I like to get my left hand, and put it into this pocket up front. Again, taking note of where that seam is going to lie. And then I'm going to use my elbow and hold down the seat and kind of use it as leverage and keep it from moving around. So again, hand in that pocket, and we're going to gently pull the fabric over from the front, and then we'll work our way to the back, like so. And this is coming along nicely. So once we get the first side taken down and installed, we can rotate the seat and work on the second side. Again, I'm putting my hand in that pocket of the corner. I'm going to take note at where that seam is going to lie down. I'm putting my elbow on the seat to kind of give me some leverage and hold it in place. And I'm going to roll that material over, starting from the front and working my way to the back. On the passenger seat, there's a slot that is available that we will put the seat frame through, and other than that, it's business as usual. And once we complete this portion of the installation, we can flip the seat over and work on getting it detached from the back portion. Now, before we do that, I like to double check and make sure that that seam is laying flat, and I want to form that material, kind of do some rubbing and massaging of that area to make sure we have a nice gradual curve and we don't have any lumpy spots, as I like to call them, where it's just not laying flat. And this is really important just because it really takes the appearance to the next level. So with the seat flipped over, we're going to start again from the center. We're going to start from the very center spot, and we're going to be working the bulk of this material from the center to the edges to give us a nice tight fit. And right now I'm pointing out the location of where these hog rings are going to find themselves. And it's pretty obvious. They've got these nice raised areas, and they're pretty easy. They look like belt loops, and that's exactly where your hog ring is going to go through. So I like to line up that front seam of the side, and we're going to put a hog ring right there in the center. And we want to make sure that the listing wire is pushed as closely as possible to the very edge, and then put a hog ring through both the listing and the belt loop, as I like to call it. So now I'm working my way to the corner, and we're going to be working from right to left. And that's going to make sure that we get everything installed nice and straight. We'll be putting a little pressure on the right corner like we did first, and then we're going to hop over to the left corner and install a hog ring there. Then we can hop back to the right and install another hog ring, and then hop to the left. If we were to put all the hog rings on the right side of the cover, we run the risk of the bottom portion of the seat cover being crooked, and that's definitely something we want to avoid as much as possible. So again, as you're working your way from front to back, you're wanting to make sure that the listing wire is pushed to the very top of the listing, and then installing a hog ring. And we're working our way to the back, and just out of frame, and I apologize for this, there are just the two flaps. Now, for whatever reason, Toyota decided to leave this back portion just kind of open, and the sides of the seat cover are just kind of flopping in the wind. So you can actually use a hog ring on this back portion and hook it to one of the springs if you'd like to just give it a little tighter of a fit. And then as we lay that down, this flap actually comes over, and there's a hole provided for the hook. And you want to make sure that you try and get this last portion nice and even. So whatever place on the spring where you decide to hook that hog ring, you want to do the same thing on the other side. Now, the last thing I'm doing is just making sure that everything is laying flat, massaging any corners, making it look nice. And so that wraps it up. I want to thank you guys for joining me for this video. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.